Sarah and Michael were supposed to be celebrating the happiest night of their lives. Instead, security cameras captured Sarah meeting hotel manager Daniel in secret at midnight. Hours later, a murder would turn their dream wedding into a nightmare, exposing lies, betrayal, and a deadly secret that had been hidden for months. The wedding had been everything they had dreamed of. Family and friends gathered from near and far to celebrate the union of a young couple who seemed destined for a happy future together. The ceremony was filled with laughter, heartfelt speeches, and promises of everlasting love. As the final guests departed and the festivities came to an end, the newlyweds felt as though they were stepping into the most exciting chapter of their lives. Their future appeared bright, and nothing seemed capable of disrupting the happiness that surrounded them. To mark the beginning of their married life, the couple decided to spend a few days at an elegant hotel known for its luxury and privacy. The hotel stood in the heart of the city, towering above the busy streets below. Its grand entrance, sparkling chandeliers, and beautifully decorated halls made it the perfect place for a romantic getaway. Upon arrival, the newlyweds were greeted warmly by the staff and escorted to a spacious suite, overlooking the city skyline. The husband was cheerful and relaxed, eager to enjoy every moment with his new wife. He spoke enthusiastically about their plans for the future, discussing vacations they hoped to take, a home they wished to build, and the family they dreamed of having one day. His wife listened attentively, smiling at his excitement and sharing in his hopes. To anyone watching, they appeared to be the picture of a perfect couple deeply in love. Throughout the evening, they explored the hotel's amenities, enjoyed a candlelit dinner, and took photographs to remember the occasion. The atmosphere was filled with romance and optimism. Guests and staff who crossed their path noticed how happy they seemed together. No one could have imagined that events already set in motion would soon turn their celebration into a nightmare. As the night grew later, the couple returned to their suite. The city lights shimmered through the large windows, casting a soft glow across the room. They talked for hours about their wedding day, laughing over memorable moments and expressing gratitude for the support of their loved ones. Eventually, exhaustion from the long day began to catch up with them. Yet behind the smiles and affectionate conversations, there were signs of tension so subtle that they went unnoticed. Hidden thoughts and unanswered questions lingered beneath the surface. While the husband looked forward to a future built on trust and devotion, secrets were quietly waiting in the shadows. Before dawn arrived, those secrets would begin to emerge, setting off a chain of events that would lead to a tragedy no one could have foreseen. The hotel had settled into silence as midnight approached. Most guests had retired to their rooms, and the bustling energy of the day had faded into a calm stillness. Dim lights illuminated the corridors, while security cameras quietly monitored every corner of the property. From the outside, everything appeared normal, but hidden beneath the peaceful atmosphere, a secret meeting was about to take place. Inside the newlywed suite, the husband had fallen asleep after the long day of celebrations. Exhausted from the wedding and the excitement of traveling, he rested peacefully, completely unaware of what was happening around him. His wife, however, remained awake. She sat quietly for several minutes, staring at her phone as though waiting for something. The glow of the screen reflected in her eyes as she read a message that seemed to leave her both nervous and determined. After making sure her husband was asleep, she carefully rose from the bed. Moving slowly to avoid making any noise, she slipped on a light jacket and checked the room one last time. Her heart raced as she reached for the door. Within moments, she stepped into the hallway and quietly disappeared into the hotel's late-night shadows. The hotel's security cameras captured her movements as she walked through the corridors. She avoided crowded areas and seemed to know exactly where she was going. A few minutes later, she arrived near a private section of the hotel that was rarely used by guests at that hour. Waiting there was the hotel manager. The two exchanged a brief glance before beginning a conversation. Their body language suggested familiarity rather than a simple interaction between a guest and a staff member. At times they spoke calmly, while at other moments their gestures became tense, as if discussing something important. No audio existed to reveal the contents of their conversation, but the footage showed that neither appeared comfortable. Minutes passed as they continued talking in the secluded area. The wife occasionally looked over her shoulder, seemingly concerned that someone might see them together. The manager appeared equally cautious. Whatever had brought them together at such a late hour was clearly significant enough to justify the risk of being discovered. Eventually, their conversation came to an end. The manager remained behind while the wife hurried back toward the guest floors. Security cameras recorded her return through the hallways and into the elevator. Her expression seemed troubled, and she appeared deep in thought. When she finally returned to the suite, her husband was still asleep. She slipped back into the room as quietly as she had left, believing the secret meeting was over and unnoticed. But the silent cameras mounted throughout the hotel had captured every step, preserving evidence that would later become central to a shocking investigation. The following morning, the hotel seemed no different from any other day. Guests moved through the lobby, staff carried out their routines, and the newlyweds appeared to continue their celebration as planned. Yet beneath the ordinary surface, the consequences of the previous night's secret meeting were already beginning to unfold. What had seemed like a private conversation hidden from the world would soon attract attention from people determined to uncover the truth. The wife carried herself carefully throughout the day, doing her best to appear relaxed and cheerful. She smiled during breakfast and participated in conversations with her husband, but there were moments when her thoughts seemed elsewhere. Her husband noticed the occasional distraction but dismissed it as fatigue from the wedding festivities. He had no reason to suspect that she had left their room in the middle of the night, or that she had met someone in secret. Meanwhile, the hotel manager also appeared to go about his responsibilities as usual. He greeted guests, spoke with employees, and handled the daily operations of the hotel. To casual observers, nothing seemed out of place. However, several staff members later recalled that he appeared unusually tense during parts of the day. He was seen checking his phone repeatedly and seemed preoccupied with matters he refused to discuss. As the hours passed, small details began to emerge. Investigators would later discover messages exchanged between the wife and the manager before the wedding had even taken place. These communications suggested that the two were not strangers who had met by chance at the hotel. Instead, they appeared to share a connection that stretched back weeks, possibly even months. The exact nature of their relationship remained unclear, but the discovery raised serious questions. The mystery deepened when security personnel reviewing routine footage noticed the late-night meeting. The cameras had captured the wife leaving her room, walking through the hotel, and meeting privately with the manager. Although there was no sound, the images told a powerful story. Their behavior suggested familiarity, secrecy, and concern about being seen together. The footage quickly became a focus of growing interest. As investigators pieced together timelines and gathered statements, conflicting explanations began to surface. Some witnesses claimed the pair had simply met to discuss a personal matter, while others believed the relationship was far more complicated. Rumors spread rapidly among hotel employees, each theory more shocking than the last. What nobody knew for certain was why the meeting had taken place, or what had been discussed. Yet one thing was becoming increasingly clear. The midnight encounter was not an isolated event. It was connected to a larger web of hidden truths, and those truths were leading investigators toward a revelation that would soon transform a suspicious situation into a full-scale murder investigation. Only a few hours after the questions surrounding the secret meeting began to grow, the atmosphere inside the hotel was shattered by a horrifying discovery. What had started as an ordinary morning quickly turned into a scene of panic and confusion. Guests gathered in hallways, hotel employees whispered anxiously among themselves, and emergency responders rushed to the property after reports of a violent incident. The victim was found under circumstances that immediately alarmed investigators. Police officers arriving at the scene quickly secured the area and began collecting evidence. The situation was treated as a homicide from the very beginning, as several signs indicated that the death was not the result of an accident. Detectives knew they were dealing with a serious crime, but they had little understanding of who was responsible or what motive lay behind the killing. As news of the murder spread throughout the hotel, fear gripped everyone connected to the case. Guests were questioned about their movements, and staff members were asked to provide statements regarding anything unusual they might have witnessed. The newlywed couple, who had arrived only to celebrate their marriage, suddenly found themselves at the center of a rapidly expanding investigation. Detectives worked tirelessly to reconstruct the events leading up to the crime. They reviewed guest records, examined phone logs, and analyzed surveillance footage from cameras located throughout the building. It was during this process that investigators returned to the footage showing the wife's secret midnight meeting with the hotel manager. What had initially seemed suspicious now appeared potentially connected to the murder itself. The CCTV recordings became one of the most important pieces of evidence in the case. Investigators carefully studied every movement captured by the cameras, creating a detailed timeline of events. They traced who entered certain areas of the hotel, who left them, and how various individuals moved through the building during the critical hours before the killing occurred. As detectives dug deeper, new inconsistencies emerged in several witness statements. Some people appeared to be withholding information, while others offered accounts that conflicted with the evidence captured on camera. These contradictions only intensified suspicions surrounding those who had participated in the late-night meeting. Meanwhile, the pressure on investigators continued to mount. The murder had attracted significant attention, and authorities faced increasing demands to identify the person responsible. Every clue seemed to lead back to the same central mystery. What had been discussed during that secret conversation, and how was it connected to the death that followed? With each new piece of evidence, the case grew more complex. Hidden relationships, unexplained actions, and unanswered questions formed a tangled puzzle that detectives were determined to solve. As they moved closer to the truth, it became clear that the murder was not a random act of violence. It was the culmination of secrets that had been building for far longer than anyone had first imagined. As the investigation entered its final stages, detectives focused on connecting every piece of evidence they had collected. Days of interviews, surveillance analysis, and forensic examinations had revealed a complex web of secrets hidden beneath the surface of what had once appeared to be a happy newlywed celebration. The case that had begun with a mysterious midnight meeting was finally approaching its conclusion. Investigators carefully reconstructed the timeline leading up to the murder. The CCTV footage remained at the center of their efforts. Every movement captured by the cameras was examined repeatedly, allowing detectives to identify inconsistencies in several statements provided during the early stages of the investigation. As pressure increased, some witnesses began changing their stories, while others revealed details they had previously withheld out of fear or uncertainty. The secret relationship between the wife and the hotel manager became impossible to ignore. Evidence suggested that their connection had existed long before the wedding took place. Phone records, messages, and witness accounts painted a picture of two people whose lives had become intertwined in ways they had desperately tried to conceal. What had initially appeared to be a brief late-night conversation was now understood to be part of a much larger story. As investigators uncovered additional facts, a motive began to emerge. The murder was not the result of a sudden act of violence or a random encounter. Instead, it appeared to be rooted in deception, personal conflicts, and decisions that had spiraled far beyond anyone's control. The deeper detectives looked, the clearer it became that multiple people had been hiding important truths. Eventually, the evidence pointed authorities toward the individual responsible for the killing. Faced with overwhelming proof, including surveillance footage and forensic findings, the suspect could no longer maintain the false narrative that had been presented at the start of the investigation. The carefully constructed lies began to collapse one after another. For the husband, the revelations were devastating. The life he believed he was beginning with his new wife had been built upon secrets he never knew existed. The trust that had defined their relationship was shattered as hidden connections and betrayals came to light. What should have been the happiest period of his life became a painful memory forever linked to tragedy. In the end, justice moved forward as authorities completed their case and prepared the sand. The hotel gradually returned to normal operations, but those who had witnessed the events never forgot what had happened. The story served as a reminder that appearances can be deceiving and that secrets often leave traces behind. What began as a celebration of love ended in heartbreak, loss, and criminal investigation. The silent CCTV cameras that recorded a seemingly ordinary midnight meeting ultimately revealed the truth, exposing the chain of deception that led to a shocking murder and bringing a hidden story into the light.